everyone. Hey, really great to be here with you guys. My name is Samy. I'm with the Binance Smart Chain team. Great to have this opportunity. I wanted to share some updates about recent progress, as well as a little bit of background about Binance Smart Chain and how we got here, and a little bit about our future roadmap and plans and share some insights about what's coming up. I'm just going to share my screen. Go full screen. So we launched Binance Smart Chain in September 2020. And Binance Smart Chain is really a product of feedback that we had received from the Binance Chain community. So for some context, Binance Chain is the single-purpose high-performance chain that runs the Binance DEX, which was launched in 2019. And it's completely different in architecture compared to Binance Smart Chain. So it's a Tendermint-based chain, super high-speed, high-throughput chain, purpose-built for the DEX. Important point about it is it doesn't have the ability to run smart contracts, so developers can't build applications on top of it. So after the launch of Binance Chain, we had a lot of feedback from the community about developing and providing a public permissionless blockchain infrastructure that can run smart contracts and allow developers to build a range of different types of applications on top of it. So we went about designing Binance Smart Chain to provide that. So there was a couple of key design decisions that drove Binance Smart Chain. So I think one of the main ones was driven by Binance worldview that there will be an internet of blockchains powering Web3, with Ethereum likely serving as a global settlement layer. So interoperability was super important, as well as making it really easy for the large Ethereum developer community to be able to build on Binance Smart Chain easily was also super important. So what you'll find today with Binance Smart Chain is it's 100% EVM compatible. So developers that are familiar with the tooling in the Ethereum ecosystem, like Remix, Truffle, MetaMask, etc., can use all of the tooling that they're familiar with. And projects that are already built and running on Ethereum mainnet can port their smart contract suites with little to no changes on the Solidity code and contracts. So I think another important part was really around this idea around an internet of blockchains, right? So having this kind of interoperability layer. And we see that today with Binance Smart Chain enabled by a couple of things. One is for sure Binance Bridge allowed us to introduce and bring a large number of wrapped assets. And I think this is also quite interesting from the perspective of the DeFi developer community. So you have today the ability for developers in the DeFi community to test market demand for a range of different types of assets from other networks, such as Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and many, many others, and integrate these assets in lending protocols and other types of DeFi protocols, and start experimenting with market demand for these types of assets, which wasn't really easily possible in the Ethereum DeFi ecosystem. But it's not, so we also did spend quite a bit of efforts around creating choice for users in terms of the types of bridges available and the bridges they could use. So there's a number of decentralized bridges, as well as Binance Bridge, which works more like a cross-chain swap mechanism. So quick snapshot to where, jumping 9 months from September till today. Obviously, there's been very significant traction on Binance Smart Chain, and I think that's really been driven by a couple of things. For sure, one is it's a large underserved demand that was being priced out by high transaction fees on the Ethereum mainnet, which started from DeFi Summer version 1, which was last year, where we saw gas prices which were transaction fees for Uniswap trades of $100 just in gas fees, for example. So obviously excluded a large portion of the market, which Binance Smart Chain was able to accommodate. So currently the transaction fees on Binance Smart Chain are around 30 cents. It was a little bit lower, was less than 10 cents because transaction fees are denominated in BNB. So the average gas fee has been fluctuating a little bit, but generally less than $0.50. So if you look at some of the metrics on Binance Smart Chain today, there's at the all-time high, which was fairly recently, was about 1.2 million active addresses, about 2.6x compared to Ethereum on that particular day. The daily transaction volumes hit about 11.8 million transactions on a particular day recently, which is about 7x of the daily transaction volume of ETH on that ETH mainnet on that particular day. And then a large number of applications. So we'll talk a little bit, I'll share some slides which gives some perspective of the number and variety of different types of applications built on top of Binance Smart Chain today. But we've also seen very large growth in the staking. So BSC runs the consensus mechanism is proof of stake authority. So it's a variation of delegated proof of stake. So not only the transaction fees, but staking as well is of course denominated in BNB. And today there's over 10 million BNB staked in the validator node securing the network, with over 30,000 delegators. So a little bit more about the history and kind of the different areas that we've been focusing on and developing in the community. So in the summer last year, we were preparing for the launch of the mainnet. The main things we were really focusing on was trying to drive education and user interest in the staking. So we ran a staking wars activity. We were also preparing kind of certain parts of the infrastructure, RPC nodes, etc., and supporting some of the early projects that we're developing on BSC. So after the launch, we saw fairly significant interest in the DeFi space with a number of lending protocols, bridges, oracles, stablecoin projects, and others deploying on BSC. At the time, the daily active users was around 45,000, and we were seeing transaction volumes of around 470,000 transactions per day, which was about 20% of the transaction volume, daily transaction volume happening on the ETH mainnet. Then in the beginning of 2021, we saw, again, a very significant increase across most of the metrics. And we saw the kind of and DeFi Lego start deploying on BSC. So the DEX aggregators, as well as synthetics projects, as well as a number of AMM DEXs and cross-chain and multi-chain infrastructures. At that period, in the first 3 months of 2021, we saw a significant increase in daily active users as well as transaction volume. So the daily active users was around 60% of the daily active addresses on ETH, and transaction volume was about 3x at that time. In Q2, we saw again another very significant increase in growth, and we saw a number of new domains of projects. So there was a lot of activity happening in the NFT space, I think driven largely by the growth and interest in the NFT space generally. So a number of other types of applications, games, social token projects, derivatives. And then from our perspective, we were also supporting more high performance infrastructure on BSC to just support the large scaling requirements that we were seeing at the time. And there as well, we saw a very significant increase in across all of the metrics. So the daily active users increased very significantly to around 1.2 million, about 2.6x compared to what was happening on the ETH mainnet, and transaction volume about 7x compared to what was happening on the ETH mainnet. So I also wanted to touch again on this point about interoperability, because we do see today BSC has this unique opportunity to play as a cross-chain infrastructure, enabling this idea of the Internet of blockchains, or Internet of value. So we're seeing already today there's a number of bridges connecting BSC to the Ethereum mainnet and other chains as well, including Polygon and several others. But we expect this to increase over time, and more bridges to be built out with other ecosystems as those develop and mature, like the Polkadot, several parachains in the Polkadot ecosystem, with the Solana and many others. And I think over time as well, we're going to see more truly cross-chain applications, which are have the ability, for example, to collateralize assets on one chain and then provide loans of assets on another chain, and other types of cross-chain applications. In terms of the landscape currently, is from the DeFi perspective, so we've seen obviously a very large growth of the DeFi space on BSC. Here's some of the projects in the DeFi landscape. These are some of the AMM DEXs and other types of liquidity aggregators and protocols. So of course, probably the most popular one, the most used, is PancakeSwap, but there's many others. We've also seen very significant growth in a number of other areas, so lending protocols, initial DEX offering or token launch platforms, derivatives, stablecoin projects, and a number of others. And here's examples of some of those projects. We've also seen, of course, another really important part or requirement is around the tooling and infrastructure. So tools like BSC Scan, which is developed and maintained by the Etherscan team, as well as other core infrastructure, RPC node providers and others. We've seen significant growth and a number of providers across a number of different areas, from data streaming, indexing, etc. We're also seeing today a large growth in the NFT space, but we're seeing BSC is really viewed by the developer community as a great general purpose public permissionless blockchain. So while DeFi and NFT growth has been most noticeable, we are seeing growth in a number of other areas. Of course, there's been, and this is not unique to this issue is not unique to BSC for sure, but we've had a number of security-related incidents recently. So we're, as a community, trying to increase the level of education as well as diligence and mindset around security and from a development perspective. So we're doing a number of efforts in this space, and we're going to continue rolling that out as well in the coming weeks and months, and maintain that as a really high priority agenda item for the developer community. So in terms of what else is coming, I think one of the key areas is really increasing the scaling capabilities of the critical infrastructure. I think the growth that BSC experienced in the last 6 months of 2021 for sure exceeded our expectations, and we expect that to continue to grow as well. There's a number of different initiatives and strategic initiatives that we're working on that we believe is going to drive the next level of growth on BSC. So we really want to, we are focusing on strengthening the critical infrastructure to support that next stage of growth. We're also going to continue focusing on supporting the DeFi developer community. We see a significant interest in that, continued significant interest in that space, as well as a number of innovative projects and being developed in that space as well around institutional DeFi and use cases that link and leverage real-world assets in, for example, some of the DeFi lending protocols. We also see very significant growth in the gaming space, as well as a number of other domains.